Hello, internet, and hello, Calin. Calin, holy crap, dude! You have made so much progress so quickly. That is really awesome. I think it's very cool for me as a coach that you're doing that, and for me as a coach that you are willing to let me put your stuff online because that way it can help other people too. I think that's awesome, and I'm really excited for how much this new change is going to affect your distance. It honestly it probably already will, but once we tune it up, it will do even more so. So like I don't want to throw out numbers, but like I'll throw out numbers. I don't think 600 is out of the question. If you are already getting to 5 or 550 on distance lines, like that seems totally reasonable. Because you have a ton of power and you're very athletic, and now we're getting the alignment locked in, and it'll just get crazy from here. So, internet, think you're up to speed. Yeah, this is where we started off, or this is where we left off. So I've done two form reviews for Calin. One of them was very long. He has taken that and run with it, and he has made a huge change to his brace, which we'll get to at the end of this video. But he was asking questions about the one leg drill. So we touched on the one leg drill. He sent me videos attempting to clean up the one leg drill, and in the meantime, he was like, "Hey, I'm just gonna try a full run up," and like he nailed it. So we're just gonna get extra distance from tuning up the one leg even more, and that'll just make the brace even more efficient because you will have even better balance on the brace. Which our sport is a balance sport. That's something that Chris Taylor said to me that I completely agree with. It is a balance sport. If you can't balance, you will not be able to throw far. Okay, so what Calin said was, so in the one leg drill, you specifically are having me plant the foot, turn 30 degrees toes backwards. Would that be how I want my plant on a dynamic run up as well to keep a stacked bone structure? So stacked bone structure, we need to unpack that. Plant with a 30-degree turn foot on the toe or the ball. Yes, both. And then the heel comes down still with the entire foot on that 30-degree angle. Yes, absolutely. Also, what do I mean by bone stack? I mean, turn on the lights before you start filming because you're a professional. No, you're not. Okay, so bone stack is my femur in line with my shin bones. Yes, it is. My bones are stacked. If the problem Calin was having is that he's so athletic that he was able to get here where I can't even do it, like where the knee is bowing sideways. If you rock up onto the blade of your foot, which Calin was doing sometimes, you get this leak out here. So that is not a bone stack because the bones are not aligned. So you want the bones to be aligned like this, but you want that alignment in this orientation. So yeah, let me play Caleb's video. Calin, sorry, dude. And then I'll go over why that is all the case because that's what he was asking about. Okay, so I have to do the switching audio sources thing here. So give me a second. This one off.
Okay, so the way I want to start out with the progression of all this is I want to make sure that I'm actually doing the one leg drill correctly, even though you did state how to do it and visually showed me how to do it. I want to have like a you view me do it type of situation and make sure that it is correct. So
Okay, so let me pause him there because that question is on par. Is it a question? It's a statement. That statement, that idea is on par with like the top 3 smart things that clients have ever said to me. It's like 2 other guys that I'm working with right now that have asked questions, and I'm like, holy crap, dude, that's a good question. Thank you for asking that. And like Kalen's viewpoint here is a million percent correct. And that's why I have this feeling like I know he's gonna go far because he's trying to make absolutely dead sure that he gets it right. Like he just said, you showed me how to do it. You told me how to do it. You demoed it. I don't trust that I am going to execute it correctly because it's a very complicated, very specific movement. So I want you to check it and tell me that I'm doing it right. 1,000,000% correct. That is perfect. Thank you, sir. Let's do it.
I'm gonna come back with both my feet, sitting at about 30. I'm gonna come back and keep my weight more on this. And then you're wanting to focus on my hips in this situation. And so I would go through my throw. Well, no, you said you don't want, okay, so.
Okay, so there's a lot here. Uh, I'll go back and play it again, but the first rep was bad. Calin caught that. He fixed it on the second rep. And there's also another thing going on. So the first rep, he did a little bit what he's used to doing, which is so he's on a 30 degree, he's got his bone stack intact, and he goes, okay, I'm going to throw now. Oops, no, that's not right. You don't want me to move the hip. So then he leaves the hip there, and it's way better. So this stick indicating where I want to do something stupid again and like get 2 yardsticks and rubber band them to my thigh. Because what I'm really trying to track here is not the position of my pelvis. If I put it on my pelvis does move, but my femur does not move. So my femur is not rotating. That's the problem. When I just twist my hips, my femur rotates. When I lift my pelvis, this side of my pelvis, this side of my pelvis rotates a little bit, but that's happening on top of the ball joint of the femur. So like you kind of have to have a decent understanding of anatomy there. So if you don't, go watch some videos about how the femur connects to the pelvis, and it'll make more sense to be able to see like the femur is like this and it has a ball joint that goes like that, and that sits in a capsule inside of your pelvis. So your pelvis moves on top of that ball joint, but the ball joint is not which way would it go? It is not rotating. You're not rotating the femur. Femur is staying strong and stable, and you're rotating the pelvis on top of it. So that's that part, and that's the hardest part of this drill, because there is power in over rotating backwards and over rotating forwards, but we don't need power because we're not throwing the 36-pound monkey head. We're throwing the 175-gram little tiny piece of petroleum. So this doesn't need power to get it going. That's I don't want to get on too much of a tangent on that, but the power is in the run up and in the brace, and the power of the brace translates the power of the run up into rotational force, and the rotational force creates speed through the whipping mechanism, which is your whole body. So you want to whip to throw a light thing. You would need power to throw a heavy thing. So our brains are calibrated to power. We're not used to throwing light things. We evolved to throw heavy things. Didn't really evolve to throw light things. I think that's true. Sure. So anyways, disc throwing effectively is counterintuitive to us. We want to use power. So we wind up in the hips and get too much power, and that actually hurts the mechanics that we're trying to use to get the whip to work. So Caleb, why do I keep calling you Caleb? It's because I know a Caleb and I don't know any Calins besides you. Calin. So it's the femur that we're trying to not rotate. It seems like you understand that, but then in the reps that you do moving forward from the video here, from this point forward, I can't speak effectively. You slip back into letting the femur rotate and rotating the hips too much, and that's what we don't want. I don't want to be able to see the curve of your glute. I want to see the side of your hip. And then you're going to get a little like peekaboo view of glute. And then the throw is going to happen. And that view is going to go away a little bit, but we don't want a lot of rotation because that starts to move the femur instead of the pelvis. Okay, so there's that part. The second part, and this is equally important, but not as nuanced. I guess it is kind of nuanced, but it's way easier to correct. So, and there's a clue to this in what you said. Okay, so you said 30 degrees back, most of your weight here, which implies some of your weight here. Basically, we want none of your weight there. And that's going to help keep you honest in terms of this next part, which is pelvic tilt, I guess is what I would call it. So, what you're doing when you put a little bit of weight here, it tends to stand you upright more. And what we want is not upright because now my pelvic tilt is gone. You want a straight line from your head to your rear foot, and you want that to include pelvic tilt. So my pelvis is tilted on this angle. It's not my pelvis is straight and my spine is tilted and my leg is behind me. It's you want everything in a straight line. So a good way to imagine this is T-pose and or warrior 3 from yoga, which is here. Wow, my balance is a little better. Cool. Little better. Not good. So you want your spine strong and straight like you were doing mountain pose and yoga. And then you just tip that over, trying to keep that line as straight as possible. So when people like me do it poorly, they're like, am I straight yet? And you hit them with a stick and you say, no, you're not. Like, send it, get it straight, and don't fall over. But hopefully that makes sense. So when you don't have pelvic tilt and you rotate your hips, or your pelvis, more accurately, the pelvis rotates horizontally, which does not work. The whole point of being on this tilt is that when you rotate the pelvis, you get a high hip and a low hip. And then when you rotate forward, you get a high hip and a low hip. It's this hip going under that is the key. Because when you get your bone stack right and you get your brace right, you load and then you extend, and that raises the front hip up. So your back hip has momentum coming down the T-pad. You're coming off of the X step. That hip is going down. So you have a down force in the rear hip and an up force in the front hip. And those make a perfectly centered rotation. If you have a horizontal rear hip and a front hip that's going up, then everything rises up. And your swing plane, which you set up so perfectly to be here, goes, okay, I'm perfect, I'm perfect, I'm perfect. Oh crap, what happened? And you lose efficiency, and you lose the ability to control nose, and you lose the ability to control launch angle, and you get what I refer affectionately to as sky shanks, which are, you're like, okay, I'm going to try to go right onto that branch right there. Boom. And then it goes 20 degrees higher than you thought, and you feel like an idiot on the golf course. Ask me how I know. So what we want for you is make sure you're not here. So you're not standing with your hips level. You're standing with your hips tilted forward because you've really committed to keeping your spine erectors engaged. Spine erectors do this, arch your back, and you're keeping your glute engaged. Glute lifts your leg. So if you have both of those on, then your pelvis is going to be tilted. If you don't have those on, then your pelvis can be neutral. Pelvis neutral rotates horizontally. Pelvis on a tilt rotates high hip, low hip. And that's what we need. And that will allow you to keep the leg strong and stable, which allows you to keep the bone stack. The bone stack goes away when you twist horizontally and your femur twists. That twists your knee, and then your bone stack is gone and everything's bad. So that's the short version at 14 minutes. And then we'll bounce back to you, and I'll show you that again. So okay, well I guess you need my audio, so I'll leave your audio off and just show you what you did. Okay, so you'll get a little of the audio of you through my mic. Should
I would
work.
focus on my hips in this situation. And so I would go through my throw.
So that one's bad. Belt buckle turned too far back.
Well,
You catch it.
oh, you said you don't want. Okay, so
There, that's better. But those ones, the hips are too horizontal still. So I can draw that so it's super clear. So your hips are spinning on that plane. And what I really want is your hips. How do I draw this? Perspective is impossible. The line, the stick that I've been holding on my front hip would be like that, where this is closer to us and this is farther away. Yeah. So you want to be tilted on that plane. This is low in the front, high in the back. Imagine that's a piece of cardboard donut around your waist. Because that's a normal thing to do, right?
those are just a couple throws just to see, see what you think. I'm not sure if that's right. I'm not sure if I'm doing the one leg thing right. I'm just trying it right now just to see what you think.
So you always drift into a little bit too much hip rotation, and that hip rotation being a little bit
It
too
doesn't. I don't think it feels right. So
horizontal.
you'll
Yeah.
probably be able to correct me, but I don't know. Let me know.
Yeah, so you're saying there that it doesn't quite feel right. And that's good. That's a really good observation. So what's going on is that you're spinning a little bit too much here, and you need to think of it a little bit more as committing to this angle, and then the pelvis isn't spinning horizontally. It's not even don't even really think of it as spinning. Think of it as lifting this hip up on the tilted plane that you've established. So you established this tilted plane here, and then you're just going to lift this side of your pelvis up on that plane and then drop it on that plane. So it's really not a horizontal twisting motion. It's really a here's the way to understand it. If you go to that warrior three pose, it's really a lifting and dropping motion. So when you do it like that, like first of all, be careful because that tweaked my glute medius a little bit. You'll be fine. I'm an old man. That helps you really conceptualize it, and then you take that feeling and apply it here to where it's a lift and a drop and not a twist, and then that'll make a lot more sense. Okay, so stop there on that video, go to the next video.
I also wanted to know that whenever you do have the proper bone stack, which I don't know, my leg, I don't, I don't even know if I'm getting it right or not, but anyways, when you do get the proper bone stack and you do get a proper plant at the proper angle and everything, where is the most pressure going to be felt on the foot? Because as you see, whenever in my what feels to be muscle memory plant and my knee comes around, it rotates my foot up onto the outer edge, so I feel most of my pressure on the outer edge of my foot, and my knee is bent while that's happening. I'm going to assume that with the way you're wanting it to be done, I'm going to feel more weight at the start through my inside of my foot, correct? Please help me with that, because that's also something, even with the one leg, as I actually do a throw, I feel like I should know where I want my weight to be, on the inside or the outside or in the middle. I don't know. Help me figure that out. I also wanted to know.
Okay, again, completely brilliant questions and stuff that I should absolutely be coaching clearer on. Okay, so first, pressure on the foot, where should it be? It's going to be hard for me not to jump around here because ADD, but I will do my best. So pressure on the foot where can't read my own handwriting. I'm worse than a doctor. You rotate. Okay, so what you do is you get down, you rotate onto the outside edge, or I would call that the blade of my foot. That's the language that I'm used to, but they both work. And then that is what makes your knee bow. That's what messes up your knee stack is that you don't want to roll because imagine like if you were doing a squat with like 300 pounds. This is okay. There's your bone stack, and if you go like this, there it's not okay, and your knee's gonna blow up. So that's why you had a knee brace on in that throw 8 months ago is because you were doing that too much and too hard. So if that knee brace thing will go away completely if you throw like you did with that good bone stack in the one that you demoed for me that we'll get to. So that's you have a physical understanding, at least you felt what it's like when it's right and what it's like when it's wrong. So we just need to be consistent on making sure that you're doing it the right way, the safe way, that's going to get you more distance and not doing it where you're bowing the knee out, getting onto the blade. But we're going to cross reference the 30 degrees or 45 degrees toe back thing with where the pressure goes. So the pressure in your foot, yes, you can totally get to where the pressure is just on the inside of your foot and it just stays there. So if the pressure stays on the inside, then it's almost like I'm trying to drive the knee in this way, and that keeps my bone stacked. Because as you know, if you don't do anything, you're going to rock that way and you're going to come out of alignment and you're going to eventually do damage to your knee. So we want to, yes, be on the inside. But then I'll go one further than that, and we want the pressure to first be in the ball of the foot with the heel aggressively far forward. The reason for that is it automates the correct part of the bone stack. So if I'm going that way and I get my toe down and I'm moving towards my heel, it's going to drive my heel down. My pressure shift, my weight is going that way, so I'm gonna rock onto the heel. Then when I rock onto the heel, especially if I push into the heel more, my knee is already going that way. So as I put more weight into my heel, it's going to straighten my leg. I can't bow backwards. I could hyperextend my knee, but you're a strong athletic dude, that's not going to happen. And most people that have a remotely reasonable foundation of strength will not have a problem hyperextending their knee. If they do something totally stupid, they could, so like be aware of it. But if you just get this angle where your heel is aggressively far forward, like at least 45 degrees, maybe even further. Like right now I'm further than 45 degrees. I'm probably like 50 or 60, probably like 55. I don't know. Angles are hard. But if you get your heel to where your heel is definitely the most forward part of your body, you're going to rock into the heel. And then as you drive weight into the heel, it's going to pop your leg back on the same plane. So the problem you were having is that you're popping your leg forward on a plane that your knee doesn't want to bend on. So it's just like your elbow. Like I don't want to cue up my throw like this because that elbow bend doesn't help me throw. This is nonsense. It's a backwards roller. I want to cue up my elbow where it's on the plane I want it to operate on. So same thing with the knee. I don't want my knee this way because I want my knee to operate on that plane. This will make your head hurt. Like, how can my knee going backwards translate into an efficient throw? And it's because the rotation of the leg does not happen. The leg doesn't need to rotate until about here, right before the release. And by the time you get there, your bones are stacked in both dimensions. So not only are they stacked this way, here they're stacked right, here they're also stacked right, but my knee is bent. Here they're not stacked. They're relying on quad tension to remain in structure. But here they're stacked. So I want my leg stacked in this dimension and this dimension while I rotate. ideally, you can do this. You already did that in your demo for me. But not everyone can do this. People my age, people older than me, people in their 50s and 60s and 70s maybe shouldn't get to a locked out knee position because that's not mechanically sound for them. They don't have the strength to keep their knee safe while they're doing that. So they might end up rotating forward on a little bit of a bend. But the knee is still going to be aligned this way, not bowing that way. That doesn't matter for you, Calin. Got your name right. It does matter for people who might be watching this video who are my age and better. So it's that's why I cue the aggressive toe back thing, because that's what made it click for me. Like I said before, I spent years going to the park doing stuff like what you were doing, and I wasn't doing this because I knew that was not going to work for my knee. But I would do this, and I would do this and that, and I would do this and hop over it. I would do everything I could to get out of putting force into my knee that my brain knew was going to blow up my knee. So what finally turned that corner for me was when I got to where I could go here, extend, and then rotate. Then I was allowed by my brain to fire my quad aggressively, which is what gets that aggressive hip clear that gives you the power that you need to, for me, get past 400, for you get to 600 hopefully. So is that all I need to go over there? No. One more thing. In the one leg, same thing. The reason you are tending to rock onto the blade edge a little bit happens less in the one leg because there's just less momentum involved, but it's because you're overwinding up your hips, and you're overwinding up your hips too horizontally, and then when you spin them, there's too much spin past, and you spin past onto the blade edge of your foot. So we can apply the same exact thing to standstills. Get more aggressive with the toe back, maybe go to a 45. And you want to be able to do this two ways. There's like two phases to the progression here. One is just stand flat, but then imagine there's a car door behind your butt, and you're going to lean back to close it. So you're sticking your glutes further out back. See what that does to my foot. Here I'm standing neutral. Here I'm sending my butt back. It rocks me onto my heel. So you want that to happen because it's going to automate your bone stack being correct. It's going to automate your leg being locked out, or close to locked out. If you don't want to lock out your leg, that's fine. Choose your own adventure. But keeping that weight in the heel makes it so if you have enough momentum that you need to rotate, you're just going to rotate on your heel in a way that is safe for your knee. If you don't have the weight in here, if you have the weight too close to the ball, then you might get into rocking onto the blade edge of your foot or the outside edge of your foot and having your knee bow, which, it's perfectly safe in a one leg because there's not enough momentum to tweak your knee, but you don't want to build that motor pattern. That motor pattern is not safe. Do not pass go. Do not collect a knee injury. Keep it strong and stable. So the way to automate that is keep the weight on the heel. So at first you're just going to keep the weight on the heel and then throw from there. And then you will learn, you can probably learn this in 5 seconds, how to start having a micro shift. So then you will put a little bit of weight in your back, and you will maybe lift the heel a little bit, and then it's just that going from here to there, having that pop. That's going to start to build the motor pattern that helps you clear your hip aggressively. Again, helps you clear your hip aggressively, go from rear pockets to front pockets. It's because you're moving this and this that way. Boom. And then that builds in a safe pivot point on your heel with your knee strong and stable and potentially locked, but not hyperextended. Yeah, so you can, that's level 2 of the one leg. First is just get the hips to where they're doing the right thing, and they're not rotating too horizontally, and they're not wanting to over rotate, and that's not wanting to mess up your bone stack. Get that first. And then you can worry about, okay, can I go a little more aggressively toe back? Can I think ball of the foot to heel of the foot? And then if I do it a little too hard, will I spin on my heel instead of having my weight. If I have my weight a little too far forward on the ball of my foot, then I'm going to spin on the ball. And that's okay as long as my knee is strong and supported. But if my knee starts going sideways, then that's not okay. Okay, so I think, yeah, we're at 1,000,000 hours, 30 minutes. So I'm going to stop there and make this part one. So thank you so much, Calin, for your help and willingness to participate and let me put this stuff online. That's really cool. And we'll do a part two and go over the other video that you sent me with the spectacular bone stack in the brace. And we'll go over the next part we want to add to that, which is calibrating the rear leg motion a little better. Okay, so thanks, Calin. Thanks, Internet, if you're still here. And Internet, if you're still here, if you like this style of coaching, this is what I like doing. This is kind of hair in my mouth. This is kind of what I would do at the like $100 tier and above, because I'm spending a lot of time with Calin, obviously, because he can handle it. And he's shown a immense aptitude for being able to pick stuff up quickly. So I'm just kind of fire hosing him as much information as I can. But this amount of time, well over an hour inside of a month, would be technically above the $100 tier. So, anyways, if if you like this, if you want this level of coaching for your throw, please check out the Patreon. There's a $50 tier. There's a $100 tier. I'm going to add a higher tier than that for like more of this type of in-depth coaching stuff. But if you like this, check that out. I am going to try to start ramping up the Patreon more. So I'm going to open more slots at the $100 level. And I'm going to open up a tier higher than that. So if you like it, check it out. Thank you. See you next time.